The Kremlin. Stalin's war, hot or cold, is stymied. He needs scapegoats for his failures. On August 12, 1952, 400 Jewish artists, actors, and writers are murdered. Next, leading Jewish doctors are accused of a plot to poison the Soviet leadership and of working for foreign intelligence. Stalin tells Ignatiev, the then Minister of State Security, if you do not obtain confessions from the doctors, we will shorten you by a head. Stalin instructs, beat, beat, and once again beat. Caught in the frenzy of his purge, Stalin now plans to liquidate his entire inner circle. Molotov, Malenkov, Beria, Mikoyan, and thousands more are threatened. But before the murders can begin, Stalin dies of a stroke. The end of a tyrant. At the bier, the beginnings of a struggle for power reminiscent of the death of Lenin. Again a triumvirate. The heirs apparent are Molotov, Beria, and Malenkov, who now becomes premier. Khrushchev is still in the background, waiting. Within months, the new rulers are shaken by the first popular uprising against a red dictatorship. East Berlin, June 17, 1953. The sign says, "We want freedom." It starts with workers demonstrating against intolerable conditions and spreads rapidly until people of all classes are demanding democracy and an end to the communist regime. Part of the Iron Curtain is torn up. The red flag is hauled down over the Brandenburg Gate. The Red Army intervenes. Sticks and stones prove useless against Soviet tanks. For East Berlin, after 13 years of Nazism and 8 years of communism, one glorious day of freedom. The red flag goes up. For Secret Police Chief Beria, Berlin sounds a death knell. Khrushchev finally sees the chance to split the triumvirate and take over Beria's police power. Among other charges, Beria is accused of treason by his failure to foresee the uprising and is arrested. Khrushchev says, "It has now been established that this villain had climbed up the government ladder over an untold number of corpses. Beria is executed." Now, as Secretary General of the party, Khrushchev follows in the footsteps of his predecessors. The opposition, Premier Malenkov, on Khrushchev's right, is disgraced and forced to resign. His successor, Nikolai Bulganin, here with Marshal Zhukov, is a Khrushchev puppet, and Khrushchev soon succeeds him. Molotov is banished. Khrushchev staffs key posts with his own followers. Then, in a maneuver that astounds the world, apparently in order to conceal the truth of his connection with the shameful past, Khrushchev turns his attention to the overpowering image of Stalin. This is the 20th Party Congress, where Khrushchev delivers his secret de-Stalinization speech. Comrades, the cult of the individual acquired such monstrous size because Stalin himself supported the glorification of his own person. Was it without his knowledge that Stalin monuments were erected throughout the country? These memorials to the living? Was it without Stalin's knowledge that many of the largest enterprises were named after him? That many of the largest towns were named after him? The communist narrator continues.
The inhabitants of Varna, now known as Stalin, voiced their warm affection and loyalty to the great Stalin and the Soviet Union.
Khrushchev continues. And when Stalin asserts that he himself wrote the short course of the history of the All-Union Communist Party, the work created by a group into a book written by Stalin, this calls at least for amazement. His short biography is an expression of the most dissolute flattery. We need not give here examples of the loathsome adulation filling this book. They were all approved and edited by Stalin personally. Khrushchev continues. Stalin knew the country and agriculture only from films that dressed up and beautified the existing situation, and so pictured collective farm life that the tables were bending from the weight of turkey and geese. Evidently, Stalin believed it was so. The power in the hands of Stalin led to serious consequences during the war. To his leadership were dedicated many literary works and paintings full of fantasy. When we look at many of our novels, films, and historical scientific studies, they make us feel sick. Khrushchev continuing, all the more monstrous are the acts whose initiator was Stalin. We refer to the mass deportation of whole nations. The Kalmyk Autonomous Republic, the Karachi, the Chechen, English. The Ukrainians avoided meeting this fate only because there were too many of them, and there was no place to which to deport them. Thus spoke Khrushchev. He avoids mentioning the Jews in whose persecution he himself is deeply involved, and Budapest is still to come. October 1956, Budapest, Hungary. The Hungarian Writers' Union is attacking the communist government for oppressing freedom, distorting the truth, exploiting labor, and abusing the farmers. Students by the tens of thousands denounced the Soviet occupation. They ripped the hammer and sickle from their flag. They demand democracy, freedom of opinion and expression, freedom of the press and radio, general elections with a secret ballot. They march to the Budapest radio station to make their program known to the world. The student leaders are arrested, and the crowd demands their freedom. Now the AVO, the Communist Security Police, opens fire. The first blood is drawn. The world has a new set of heroes, the freedom fighters, who rally during the night and win the support of the Hungarian army and the local police. Within 48 hours, Soviet troops enter Budapest. The Hungarians have a message for them. Russians go home. Molotov cocktails, a homemade explosive, emphasizes the message. Eventually, the Soviets are forced to lift the siege of the Killian barracks, where a hastily organized defense under Colonel Pal Malater has withstood a violent assault. The AVO, the secret police who have barricaded themselves in the Communist Party building, are taken prisoners. Political prisoners are freed. One of them, Cardinal Minzetti, has been a captive for 8 years. Russians go home. Radio Moscow broadcasts, the Soviet government is prepared to revise its policy of stationing troops in Poland, Hungary, and Romania. The Red forces withdraw. Soviet officials and their families start to evacuate the city. For the moment, Hungary is free. For the moment. The Stalin statue, the symbol of tyranny, is brought down. The inscription reads, "Free Hungarian Radio." The free press rolls. Soldiers and freedom fighters celebrate. Janos Savo, one of the citizen heroes to emerge from the revolution. Malater, now the Hungarian commander in Budapest, and Kildy, the Minister of State, are invited to Soviet headquarters to discuss the final withdrawal of Soviet troops. It is a trap. Malater never returns. On the morning of November 4th, Soviet bombers attacked the city. The signal for an all-out assault by the Red Army. Says Khrushchev, "You think that the communist system can be maintained only with the help of our armed forces? I would not fight for such a system. The communist system must be based on the will of the people. And if the people do not wish this system, let them establish the way of life they think best." But in Hungary as elsewhere, words are one thing, actions another. As the devastation continues, the Hungarian radio pleads, "People of the world, listen and come to our aid. Not with declarations, but with force. Your turn will come also if we perish. Listen to our cry and act. Extend to us your fraternal aid. May God be with you." Then silence. The aftermath, death. And again the inevitable refugees from communist tyranny. Premier Janos Kadar arrives in Moscow for instructions from Premier Bulganin. Khrushchev states, "Comrade Janos Kadar is truly above all a revolutionary who is thoroughly dedicated to his cause. He is a loyal communist who stands on international Marxist-Leninist positions, who does not shun questions of class struggle." It is again apparent that communism requires a dictatorship to survive. With the blood scarcely hosed off the Budapest streets, Khrushchev begins to build his own image. He is a man of the people, a smiling, good-natured peasant. He is a man of the world, interested in people and problems everywhere. He meets with Sukarno of Indonesia, with Mao Tse-tung, and with Fidel Castro. Khrushchev is a peaceful man who sponsors peace organizations throughout the world. The communist narrator says,
"The International Stalin Prize for the promotion of peace among nations is presented to the Cuban poet Nicolas Guillen."
And Khrushchev organizes movements for the abolition of atomic weapons. The truth is something else. The world finds that Khrushchev's brand of communism is no different than Lenin's or Stalin's. He breaks a solemn agreement for no further testing and resumes some 40 nuclear explosions, detonating a multi-megaton hydrogen bomb, the most awesome man-made explosion in history, apparently to frighten the world. Preaching disarmament on his own terms, he maintains the largest standing army on earth, a constant threat to peace, an ever-present instrument of blackmail. Says his Minister of War, Rodion Malinovsky,
"Glory to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, which has inspired and organized all our victories. Working for world peace, the Soviet state shows its ceaseless concern for the army, which has been called upon to stand guard over the gains of the revolution."
The peaceful man is dutifully following Lenin's advice. Every peace program is a deception of the people and a hypocrisy unless its principal object is to support, aid, and develop the revolutionary struggle. The smiling, good-natured peasant admonishes, "If anyone believes that our smiles involve abandonment of the teachings of Marx, Engels, and Lenin, he deceives himself fully. Those who wait for that must wait until the shrimp learns to whistle." The man of the people restores the League of